Okay, how much of attraction do you think is related to this person is mirroring your childhood traumas and that's why you feel a connection with them?
Great question, which I'd love to get into. I just want to go back a little bit to pick up on something else that was said by this person, which is, make sure it's the best sex he's ever had. Well, there is no way that you can ever measure that, yes. Right? So you will never know whether you've achieved that or not. And what that implies is that somebody stays in partnership for life with someone because it's the best sex that they ever had. I mean, do you think that's true? No. So I don't want young women and girls to hear this stuff and for it to make them behave in a way that isn't in keeping with their integrity. Because if you really question those things, you know what the answer to that is. The answer to that is not put out as quickly as you can and try to be great in bed. That's not what's going to make you happy for the rest of your life. So let's relate that to the trauma bonding from childhood. So that's all physiology. Now, psychologically, we do say that you are very likely to be drawn to and meet people for romantic connections as well as friendships who are at a similar level of psychological wound to you. Now, you've done a lot of work recently for a reason, right? So you may have girlfriends your age who haven't had a crisis yet, so they haven't done that much kind of work. And sometimes that means that friendships drift apart as well because you're becoming more evolved psychologically, and it may be difficult for people to understand you, be around you. It may be difficult for you to witness certain behaviors that you've moved on from. So it both draws us to people at a similar level, which isn't always a bad thing. But it can also, if somebody does the work, it can also draw us away from certain people.
It's so true that everyone that you're attracted to is such a mirror of where you are at in your consciousness and reflecting back. And it's interesting because a lot of people, they say, oh, I'm attracting fuckboys. I'm attracting. And it's not that we're attracting, it's we're attracted to, right?
Yeah. And that's very much about boundaries, right? So that's something I'd like to relate to everything that we've just discussed, whether it's how quickly you have sex or what kind of level of psychological wound you're attracted to or attracting, which is that, you can have your boundaries transgressed by someone verbally, emotionally, physically, financially, sexually. And, of course, a lot of this stuff is happening non-consciously, and there are lots of reasons for that. But it's about having the right advice around you, the right friends, or being able to question yourself enough to say, is it okay that because someone paid for dinner, they're expecting me to do X? Is it okay that this is the third time in a row that I've paid for things and the person hasn't offered? Just really being able to step back and say, what would you advise your best friend or your sister? And trying to, really do that for yourself if you don't have enough people around you that can test that with you. But also, what I would say is, be mindful of the agenda of the people that you are asking questions to. Even if they're your best friends and family, out of love, everyone has an agenda for you, right? And often it's that your single friends want you to be single, or your married friends or your parents want you to be married. So it's kind of taking their advice, but understanding the context that they would have for giving that advice too.
So do you think it's possible to enter into a relationship with someone that you feel no chemistry with, just merely from a, hey, we're compatible perspective? And do you think that could work long term?
No, I don't think so. I don't see why we would have to compromise or choose. There does need to, particularly initially, be a level of visual, physical attractiveness. And actually, it turns out that people's voice and accent is pretty important as well. So if we like the way they sound.
I like how you sound. So attractive. And I was British accents are the best. I mean, you're winning life.
Yeah, I'm winning in America, I'm winning. In London, I'm quite ordinary. But I
know in London, everyone was like, where are you from? I'm like, LA. They're like, wow, you sound like the Kardashians. I'm like, FML. This is exotic for them.
Yeah, exactly. And being a musician, that's probably actually, whether it's, I don't know how conscious it is for you, probably actually very important because sound is very important to you.
I fall in love with people's voices majorly. What is it about their sound? What are we really listening to from a psychological perspective?
So basically, if you think about the way we evolve, so the third one I was coming to is smell, but in the animal kingdom, they're not looking around and saying, wow, that tiger's stripes are really hot. They're doing it more on smell, right? So we're very visual because we had to hunt and gather and look out for predators, like other animals do too. But in terms of sexual attraction, it is very physical for us because we're just like much more evolved with the cortex in our brain. But we also have articulated speech, and we're the only animal that has that. So it's another thing that we can use to see if we're attracted to someone. Whereas, I don't know, like, well, birds, I think they sing to each other when they're mating. You know, there's probably a bit of voice stuff going on.
Dolphins, probably, their voices. Yeah.
And then smell, which is, interestingly, it's not a major attractor for us, but it can be a major detractor. So think of this, you know, this celebrity that you were kind of obsessed with.
Yes.
Imagine you met him and he looks so nice. You love his voice already. And you met him and he had bad breath. It would probably put you completely off, right?
Totally.
So it's one that can like prevent attraction, like progressing, but you're not necessarily going to fall in love with someone because they love your smell. You love their smell, but it's a bonus if you do. And there's a reason for that. It's called the major histocompatibility complex because we're actually smelling each other's immune systems. And if your potential partner has a very different immune system pattern and gut microbiome from you, you're more likely to want to reproduce with him because that would give your child a broader benefit of immunity.
It's so fascinating. I have a friend that was in a long-term relationship with someone, but the way they started dating was they were both drinking all the time. Like they would go on dates, be drinking. Even when they started having sex, they were kind of drunk. And they fell in love, more of like a familial bond. It was never really quite sexual. And once she kind of stopped drinking, she could not stand his smell. But they were already in a long-term relationship. And it just grossed her out. And it made the intimacy really difficult. Eventually, the relationship ended because of that. So it's, and then people talk about like birth control pills and how that can shift your immune system because your body thinks it's pregnant at the time. And then when you get off of it, all of a sudden, who you're attracted to shifts as well. That's why there's like a research study called the divorce pill saying that the birth control was the divorce pill from all the women getting divorces because they met their husbands when they were on the pill, got off to try to get pregnant, and then all of a sudden couldn't stand how he smelled.
Well, there's also the fact that when in our monthly cycles, when we're fertile, we prefer a bad boy, you know, a really high testosterone kind of, you know, alpha male type. But the rest of the cycle, we prefer somebody that's more likely to settle down with us for life. So obviously changing your hormone profile by taking the pill is also going to, you know, put you in a different category from the fluctuations that you would experience during a month.
And then also people are much more attracted to us when we're ovulating. Is that across the board, everyone, or is it also like a different type of man?
I mean, so this one isn't so split between the two types of men that we've just discussed. Everything that I talk about in terms of the science is always based on population norm studies, which means it doesn't include everyone. There's always outliers. Yeah. But in general, in terms of explaining sexual reproductive behavior, men find women who are ovulating more attractive. And the studies have looked at things like the swaying of their hips when they dance or walk, things like posture, and just like glowing of the skin and things like and flicking of the hair. So that behavior changes when you're ovulating, and men, they definitely notice it.
So what is it that makes women attracted to this bad boy archetype? Is there some science around this? Is it based on like evolutionary survival of like he would be like the most likely to keep you safe from the predators?
Unfortunately not. He's the most likely to get you pregnant and move on to the next woman and get quite a few women pregnant at the same time and make sure, you know, because he's got these strong genes. Mm-hmm. So it'll be to do with genetic benefits, things like height that we still find very attractive, even though it doesn't necessarily mean that much in the modern day. Yeah, so the alpha male usually had the hardiest genes and everybody would want to be impregnated by him, although he was less likely to hang around. And that's when the beta males would come in and keep the cave safe.
So we're really just still picking up on he has the strongest genes and it's the most likely to survive.
Yeah, because if you think about it, from, you know, definitely now with dating apps, because people are actually stating criteria. But even if I think back to when I was in my 20s, when I was dating, the thing that women most want in men is that they're tall.
Yeah.
And that's regardless of the height of the woman. I mean, I'm really short and you're not very tall either.
Yeah.
I'm guessing
I still love a tall guy.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And is it just because he's like the most likely to be able to like get you some coconuts from the tree?
And probably aim better at the woolly mammoth, with the spear kind of thing.
Yeah.
And see things, further away.
Yeah. And it's interesting because what would be the alpha male maybe in our society today is obviously not based on that. It's based on like their adaptability with our culture today, but they may not physically look that part. And that's where our like biology is still kind of slowed down in those times, that we still see alpha man as like hunter. Whereas today it's like, I don't know, like Silicon Valley tech people. I know,
but I actually think that's really cool because like, there was a time where the stereotype of like the ideal like husband was like in financial services. For me as a scientist, I think it's so great that it's like, biotech and biomed people because let us have our day.
You guys are sexy. You deserve it. And then what about for women? What is the science behind what makes women attractive for men?
Well, visual is very, very important for men. And I think it's going to be hard for me to really specify what that might be. I mean, there'll be some obvious things like the hourglass figure, but I just don't think that works across the board anymore. So it's what's attractive to you visually. Voice, again, does seem to be more important than we've ever really thought about before. Smell will also be important. And then, those are the first three that you do before you come to like touch and taste. But, all the senses will be involved. So it'll be, I think there's more variation there, and it's basically what triggers reward in your brain when you see it, hear it, touch it, that kind of thing.
You know how everyone has like a type, and it can shift as well. Not everyone, but a lot of people do. I wonder if that's something in your biology, like knowing like my strongest child, like offspring would be if I merge with this type of person.
Probably.
Because it's like, where is that coming from?
No, I think that. I always said that people sort of fall into two categories. You're either like a gene pool expander, so you look for someone that's really opposite to you, or you're a gene pool intensifier. And you do see these couples that look like siblings, right?
All the time, yeah.
Yeah, so that I feel like that was just a theory I had when I was younger. But I think all this immune system and histocompatibility complex stuff is starting to make sense of that.